You see, when we build trust on a team, it allows us to embrace the next thing that we have to do. And that is we have to really understand and benefit from conflict. Conflict is a second discipline or behavior that we have to embrace. Conflict on a team is a good thing. Okay? Now, it looks different from culture to culture and company to company and family to family and disc profile to disc profile, and that's okay. The key is this. We're not talking about negative interpersonal conflict, mean-spirited. We're talking about productive ideological conflict, conflict around issues. That's a good thing on a team. What matters is this, that you know that nobody is holding back their opinions, that people are not afraid to speak up. They're not calculating the cost, weighing the political ramifications. They are, if something is worth disagreeing about, they will disagree, and they will tell one another. That's what we're looking for, that kind of conflict. Now, I said it's not supposed to be personal, and it's not supposed to be negative, but it's going to be uncomfortable. That's why I call it conflict. Some people say, well, can't you just call it discussion? The truth of the matter is, when human beings disagree, it's a little uncomfortable, and we have to embrace that, which is why we talk about trust first. Because if we trust one another, and we have to start there, and we have true vulnerability-based trust, then there's no fear. Because I know that if I disagree with you, you know that I'm not trying to hurt you. I'll admit if you convince me otherwise, so I can engage in this conflict without fear. But if there's no trust, if there's no vulnerability-based trust, then conflict becomes manipulation and politics. With trust, conflict is nothing but the pursuit of truth or the best possible answer. What a great thing that is. And that's why we need to embrace conflict on our teams. I once worked with a team that struggled with conflict. I never quite understood why. And they had made some mistakes in the decisions they had made, and they couldn't figure out why. So I went to one of their staff meetings, and I saw something interesting happen. The team leader was sitting there, and most of their meetings were boring. And by the way, a boring meeting is a good sign of a team that doesn't engage in enough conflict. Because conflict is inherently interesting. And when we go to our team meetings, we should be disagreeing with one another, but because we trust each other, it's just productive. Well, this team had very boring meetings. So I was observing their meeting, and they finally started to get into issues. And they were debating things and getting uncomfortable with one another, and people were really challenging one another. It was the best meeting they'd ever had. And then the leader did something very telling. He pushed himself away from the table, stood up and said, I can't deal with this. And he walked out of the room. And suddenly I realized this is why they have bad meetings, make bad decisions, and don't have good conflict. Because the leader was incapable of sitting there with them and encountering that. And we as team members and team leaders have to realize when we have conflict at our meetings, that's a good thing. As a consultant and even as a team member, it's really important when team members start to engage in conflict and you can tell they're a little uncomfortable that somebody interrupts them and says, this is great. This debate that you guys are having, this is exactly what we need. Because people need to be reminded in real time that it's serving the team to engage in conflict and that they're not violating anything, they're actually promoting goodness on the team.